Welcome to the Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 podcast, bringing you ideas and resources for K-12 classrooms, schools, and school districts. Hosted by Steve Miletto. And now, here's Steve with this week's show.
Hey, it's me again, and today I have Dr. Lodge McCammon with me, and so...
Greetings, everyone. World.
Say hi back, all right?
Yes.
Appreciate you being with us today.
I'm waiting for them to say hi.
Oh, okay. I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay. Move on. Next question.
Next question.
I'm so nervous.
All is good. So let's start by talking about you. Tell us a little bit about what you do, a little bit about your background, because I know that you taught high school and you taught a university for a while. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about you. What do you do?
Yeah, so I was a high school teacher, and I taught AP Economics and Civics at Wakefield High School, which is in North Raleigh. Go Wolverines. And I was there for a while, and then I went back and got my PhD from NC State University in... I can't remember what year. 2008. I think I finished in 2008, and I got it in education, specifically curriculum development. And while I was getting my PhD, I worked a lot with training teachers, doing professional development, designing new types of curriculum or curricula, and doing quite a bit of traveling, actually, mostly around North Carolina. A few months ago, I had an opportunity to change up what it is that I'm doing. And now I'm kind of doing two different things. First, I'm working on an album. For the next 2 years, I'll be working on two different albums. I'm also a musician, and I grew up playing music. I started playing violin when I was 2 years old. And I did a lot of studio work growing up. My dad was a record producer in Chicago, so I was around music a lot. My mom was an orchestra director, so music was sort of my entire life. So when I went back to school, I did my research for my PhD on music. It was called Chemistry to Music, and I took the 8th grade chemistry unit for North Carolina Standard Course of Study and created sort of an album about chemistry for 8th graders, so for 8th grade teachers to depart from the lecture style classroom and use lyrics and music in place of the traditional lecture. And I did a study looking at achievement and motivation, both increased when using music in the classroom, specifically chemistry. But a couple months ago, I had the opportunity to change what it is that I'm doing, and now I'm working on an album, about a 50-song album this year, one song about every state in the United States. Probably 51 songs, because my friend Rob said to me the other day, man, you should do, after you get done with the 50th, you should do a 51st state about the United States.
Oh, excellent.
Which I thought was a really fantastic idea. But basically the idea is that I want to create about a 3-minute song, modern tempos, that kind of thing, modern instruments somewhat, where the basic history, geography, and economic structure of the state is covered. And what I'm shooting for is to create these songs so that 4th grade students can sort of discover, because that's where many states across the country, that's where they first learn about their state history.
Right.
So hitting the 4th grade standards, but also up to 8th grade standards for most states as well. For example, Georgia, I'm working with a teacher named Jeff Woods tomorrow, close to Atlanta, with his 8th grade classes on integrating this new song that I wrote about Georgia called The Old South's End with his 8th grade classes.
Oh, excellent. Now I got to ask, because there's 50 of them, so how far are you?
I have completed 14 so far. If you want to check them out, all the songs have videos that go along with them that are sort of a view into the recording process in sort of my little studio in my house. So you can see how the songs unfold as you're listening to the song, which is kind of neat. So that's this year. That's part of what I'm doing this year. The other part is I'm doing quite a bit of traveling, working with teachers, not only helping them integrate music into the classroom, whether it's social studies, English, science, or math, but also integrating concepts like flipped classroom teaching, being more efficient in lectures, how to engage students using very simple technology, those types of things. So I travel quite a bit doing that, helping teachers, working with teachers, all different levels and all different curriculum or content areas. And then thinking forward next year, if I finish this 50-song thing, which I will finish it. I will finish it. But on deck for next year will be the 43 presidents in a row.
Oh, excellent.
So 2 years, 90, what did I say, 43? 93 songs. I think I can do it.
There you go. That's awesome. Look forward to hearing them because I love the state songs.
Thank you. What's your favorite one? Did you figure it out yet?
No, I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay.
But
one of the first four.
George is right. George is right there. I do have to tell you that.
Yeah.
But I'll go back and I'll shoot you an email because it's one of those very first ones that you did, and so I got to go back and find out and shoot that to you.
Nice.
One of the things that just as a note, it's funny because I told you this morning, I feel like I've known you, but I've never met you because I've been using your videos to help share with teachers how to flip the classroom and using the model that you've created and that you've been sharing with teachers and teaching prospective teachers how to do this in the classroom. And kind of what I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about is that your idea and concept using the whiteboards and the markers and the flip cameras and so forth, it seems to be about efficiency and making the teacher a little more efficient. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. One of these secrets in education, which I'm trying to tell people, as many people as possible about this secret, is that we are, many teachers, myself included, when I was in the classroom, highly, highly inefficient just because of what's happened with technology in the past, 10 years, really, that we have high definition video cameras in our pockets. Many of us do, or they can be checked out easily at a media center in our school, or they can be purchased online in places like eBay for $30 for a decent high definition camera. We live in that world, and what that means, what that world really is, or what those tools really allow us to be, is much more efficient. And let me just break down a scenario for you that many teachers will. We have responsibilities. Let's take a middle school science teacher, for example. And one of the responsibilities of this teacher is to deliver the content to their students in their way, with their examples, building those relationships so students believe that the teacher knows their content and believe in their teacher. Now, the issue is that in the modern classroom that is growing, the class sizes are increasing, and the level of diversity in learning we have in the classroom is huge. We have students who struggle with their writing, struggle with literacy, all the way up to students who are exceptionally bright. So how do we manage a classroom like that? And the concept of lecturing or delivering direct instruction, that information to a group of students like that is large, getting larger, and very diverse, is no longer working. It worked maybe 60 years ago because students were highly invested in coming to school and listening to really, really knowledgeable adults. But those days are sort of over, and we have to figure out how to be more efficient in our practice. And one of the ways is using these very simple digital tools that are in our pockets so that we can check out from our media center to record very condensed versions of that lecture or direct instruction. And what we're finding is that when a teacher does that, the 60-minute lecture given in the classroom can be condensed to about a 10-minute video when recorded, because you don't have behavior management issues, you don't have interruptions, you don't have all these things that just slow down the content. And the funny thing is, why it's a secret is because we just think, okay, that's just the way it is. I lecture first period, I lecture the same thing second period, I lecture the same thing third period, each for an hour, when it just doesn't have to be that way. And if we think about it differently and just condense that 60-minute lecture to 10 minutes, that makes us extremely efficient and opens up an amazing amount of time for other things other than lecture that are going to engage that really bright student and that student that's struggling with literacy, because the lecture doesn't really engage either one of those students or many in between.
It's easy to check out as a kid.
You probably just checked out now. That was way too long.
Oh, no. What?
Yeah, exactly.
No, not at all. The point is that it is easy, if someone's just lecturing, it is easy for a kid just to check out, and it looks like they're paying attention. Right. I was kind of king of that world there.
I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, thank you very much.
pretending to write, nodding my head.
Exactly.
Kids are very good at this. We are very good at this too. We've been trained to pretend.
We've been trained to pretend. I like that. That could be a T-shirt.
Trained to pretend. It's a little hard to say. It's kind of a tongue twister.
That's true. Let me ask you, because one of the neat things that you have with your videos is that you've posted videos of teachers using the whiteboards, teachers using the flipping the classroom model. You've posted kids interacting with the teachers and actually doing the videos themselves, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But one of the neatest things is that you have adults who are teachers right now who evidently work with you and working with other prospective teachers, and they respond to the questions or the reasons why people can do it. And I just thought maybe we could just kind of share wherever that brainstorm came from. It was brilliant because you can use those then, because the questions that most people ask, you have a video for it.
Well, the brainstorm came from the same place as the brainstorm for flipping the classroom, because part of the inefficiency of the classroom, I mean, let's go back to first, second, and third period. So first period, you're giving your lecture and you get the same questions from the students. You get a bunch of, oh, I don't get it, or what, and then second period, you get those same questions again. You're like, oh my gosh, that first period asked that as well, and so third period, same thing. But it comes from wanting to help people first. Giving people the answers to the questions that they're most interested in, lowering the barrier to do this, because a lot of people just need their questions answered. A lot of them want to do this and they believe it. They just need to hear somebody explain a practical way to get around their particular issue. For example, the question about the two popular questions, I'm going to address the second one. The first one is, well, what if students don't have access to computers outside of the classroom?
Right.
This is not fair. This won't work. And a lot of the questions, what we found is that they start out questions, and then people answer them. They start out and then they answer it in sort of like, this won't work because. And the second question is, what if students don't watch the video? That's very popular. It's got like 30,000 views on YouTube. It's a very popular question. Or maybe more. I don't know. I haven't checked it today. So that particular question, Katie is the teacher that has done a lot of these frequently asked questions. I think she holds the market on frequently asked questions, or she controls the market of frequently asked questions about flipping the classroom on YouTube. I think actually her flipping the classroom video is the first one that comes up.
It is.
And the TEDx video that we filmed, or we didn't film at NC State, or that was filmed of us, is number 2. And then her frequently asked questions are just sprinkled all throughout those pages,
right,
based on their popularity. But that particular one, just hearing a teacher say, it's just like regular homework. There are students who don't do your homework right now. What do you do about them? It's
right.
the same answer. You're asking students to do something. If they don't do it, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's not like flipping the classroom is creating a problem. But anyway, so you've heard her answer. I don't need to go. And you can search Katie Gimbar in that question if you'd like to hear that. I don't have to repeat it, which is nice. But it's just a way to help people, a scalable way to help people. I mean, if you look at those numbers, we've helped 30,000 people get over that question.
Exactly.
As opposed to every single person you run into, they ask you that question, you're like, oh my gosh. And then, in a line, you just it's the same question after the same question. That's no fun. It goes back to that repeating yourself, and that is highly inefficient in the 21st century world.
Well, as a note, it's awesome that you decided to address it that way because, first of all, they're teachers or people who have taught working with people wanting to be teachers. And so they can say, this is what we do.
Right.
And it works. And kudos. It's awesome. And that's why it's gotten 30,000 views. I do have to tell you that I've probably rewatched it.
Well, it doesn't on YouTube. They don't allow that to count for multiple views.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
That's cool. I did not know that.
They've got some algorithm figured out.
That's
otherwise,
awesome.
Otherwise, every single one of my videos would have like 10 million views. I'd just stay up all night. Just gonna,
make it go viral yourself. I like that. That's good.
That's right.
Well, let's shift topics now. Let's talk a little bit about today. I attended a class where you were teaching teachers how to differentiate in the social studies classroom. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, you were a high school social studies teacher. You taught economics, AP Economics,
and civics, yep,
and
bit of history.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So you taught the gambit, which is awesome. In thinking about your differentiation class, what would you say was your main message in that?
Well, there were really two messages.
I'm smiling. You can't see it, but it's funny.
There are really two messages. First, realize that the first activity we did was go around and share the differentiation activities that teachers are already doing, and they do all sorts of. They have all sorts of great ideas and amazing things. One of the main pieces again, there are two, but the main one I wanted to take away from what they're already doing is that adding a level of rigor, if we think of something like Bloom's revised taxonomy that ends at the top with having students create something new. I don't believe that's the end of Bloom's revised taxonomy. I think there's rigor above that creation level and within it as well. So if I challenge my students to create some sort of graphical representation of a battle, for example,
okay,
on a whiteboard. Here are some markers. Here's a whiteboard. I want you to draw the flow, how this battle happened, and what the outcome was. So they start drawing this information and putting this together. It's a totally different assignment if I tell them, by the way, I'm going to have you come up to the front of the room. You're going to sit down in front of a camera. You're going to explain it to the camera, and then I'm going to publish that video to YouTube so we can share it with our class, with our educational community, and possibly millions of people in the world might see your video about that battle. That changes the paradigm of that assignment. So the first assignment was like, okay, we'll just draw this thing. The second was, holy cow, okay, yes, that's the world we live. I want this to be on YouTube, so it has to be really, really good. It has to be accurate. It has to be, I guess, efficient, condensed. I have to take this assignment much more seriously because of the possibility of a global audience. And that's what I was hoping they would take away from the first part, is that adding, they're doing all sorts of amazing and great things already, but just adding that level of rigor that's saying this might be published for a global audience, and then also the level of rigor of creating something like that video of a student explaining that battle and then having them watch it back can be extremely rigorous. At first, it's disequilibrium, like, oh gosh, there's so many things I didn't like. But being able to know that and going back and be like, okay, my next one's going to be a lot better. That is a level of rigor we should hand our students with every single lesson. And I'm really, really excited about that. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, like any social studies teacher, time is the problem. Like, we could do all sorts of amazing differentiated instruction if we had unlimited time. I could spend an entire semester on the Civil War,
right,
and do everything I could possibly think of. We could, I could do that, but that's not the world we live in. We live in a world of pacing guides and moving through a lot of content in a semester. So giving them practical tools, using the same simple tools of digital recorders in very simple ways to encourage teachers to, very much like flipping the classroom, condense their lecture material, film that, and even do something as simple as using that as an efficient way of delivering the information in the class time, using the balance of the class time to challenge students to, again, record, publish, reflect on their work, and get the benefits of the same process that the teacher went through to create their content. And as a side note, one of the reasons I encourage teachers to film their content in this way, it's very rapid, very simple to create, but also it does a really great job at modeling the creative process for their students. A low barrier process where the students can see their teacher up on the screen with some whiteboards talking about this information, and the teacher can immediately turn around and say, you've seen me do it, I want you to do the same thing. And it's very challenging, rigorous, and that's where we want our teachers and students to be, I believe.
Oh, I love that, because what it does is quickly makes the kids go, well, now wait a second, if an old person can do it, then I could definitely do it.
Find out quickly, be like, this is actually really challenging, which is good. That's what we want. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Raise them to the level of to getting it. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. What was great was, you had the teachers so engaged. They're up dancing and they're filming and they're doing the drawings and they're explaining and they're using the whiteboards and ultimately participating in dancing to your song about Georgia. And I say dancing, but explaining using body language and so forth. It is refreshing to see, because I can just having some of the conversations. I know that many of them, their brains are on fire as they're thinking about different ways they could use this in the classroom. So it's just kind of amazing. And I know it's neat, because when you walk in and you see teachers who have stayed to try and ask you questions, that's kind of going to be supportive to you, and the idea that they are going to move on and take this. I
actually paid them to stay.
Aha, okay.
You're coming back, and
thanks.
It's just two or three of them, not over the top.
That's impressive. I like that. That's planning for that. That's good.
Always plan ahead. But just real quick, one of the things that I'm additionally passionate about in my presentations is is modeling and how important it is. That's why you saw people up and dancing. That's why we created so much stuff today. And I'm just trying to practice what I preach, because today's session was many hours long. It was a full day, and I can say that I didn't do much of the work. I did facilitated modeling, and I'd show a video or show a piece of media or something, and then immediately pass it off to the students and be like, tell me what you think. Do that formative assessment, however it looks like. I mean, the formative assessment that I used was, I think it's very powerful, but showing a short lecture video, 10-minute lecture video on the content that I wanted to cover, and then challenging them to kind of summarize it in a different way, even in a differentiated way. I could give these students a chance to do something, give these students a different assignment, and then I can just walk around and just walk between their desks and look over their shoulder, see what they're creating on their whiteboard. It gives me a really great understanding of where they are and where I need to go next. Because otherwise, again, if I'm at the front of the room lecturing, I have very little understanding of how students are doing. And my visual or doing formative assessment by just kind of scanning the room or asking a hand-raising question is not extraordinarily effective. Many people think it is. It's just, we all think that, I'm really good at reading my students. Maybe not. Maybe during certain activities. But that's really how I love to use formative assessment. Getting those whiteboards filled with information.
Oh, that's excellent. One of the things that was really kind of cool was as you were explaining what they had, because you wanted them to critique the exercise using the whiteboards. And it was funny kind of watching the light bulbs come on as they started thinking about what you did, and you pretty much took them through all of these activities. They weren't just dancing and watching videos and stuff. They realized that, oh my gosh, he's kind of tricked us into into learning this process, which would challenge, just like you explained that you had given one group a little different of an assignment and stuff like that.
Like, I didn't know you did that with that group. Yeah.
They had no clue, and they're like, what?
Were they the smart group, or were we the smart group?
I noticed you didn't answer that question either.
No. And next slide. Yeah.
But as a note, what was awesome about that is that you definitely did exactly what you're talking about. You modeled that idea that, you can do this in class. And then you gave them ideas in the classroom of working with those kids who are behind, or the ones who do cause the disruption. And you gave them real world examples of that. I've said this several times, but I just got to give you a big pat on the back for that, because that is that's the type of stuff, those takeaways that they go, you can't see me now, but I'm turning my head sideways. You go, aha! The aha moments when I figured that out. And so that's excellent.
And extending on what you just said, in terms of my excellence. No, I'm kidding. But it's one of these things that I figured out a number of years ago about the modeling and how important that really is, because teachers spend a lot of time in their classroom doing their thing,
right?
And which reinforces their teaching style, because as human beings we have to say, well, I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing the correct things, and then I repeat and repeat and repeat. And then we go to like PLC or PLT meetings, and we talk about teaching, but we never see each other teach. And then we're supposed to go maybe observe other teachers in our first couple of years, but maybe that happens, maybe that doesn't. And if we do observe another teacher, it's usually for a couple minutes, and then we have to go out and do something else. And then we go to professional development, and many times it's sitting and listening to somebody tell us what we should be doing. So really, since college, we never get to see people teach.
Right.
We get told, like, here's how you use this KWL chart, and here's how you use these 50 different internet tools, and here's how here's what they are, and here's some general ideas. But actually experiencing lessons as a student, I believe, is the core of making real change in teachers. They have to be able to go and not say, oh, I learned about 20 new websites. They need to be able to say, I felt what it was like to be a student using this particular thing, which I liked that feeling. It makes sense. It fits in my paradigm. It's very difficult to get people to change, but I think at the core of change has to be modeling. They have to see something, like it's human existence. You have to see something you want to be like.
Yes.
And then say, I like the way that made me feel. And you really can't get at that without modeling. Talking about something and then showing somebody something are two very different things.
That first video, you actually showed them that this is not taking a lot of editing. It's a one-shot video.
I just did it once.
And you went, oh, that was nice.
Like, oh, nice job. Way to mispronounce that word. Anyway, here we go.
And you move right on.
Still significantly shorter than if I did that in real life.
Oh, yes, especially because you would have had all those interruptions. You have all the other stuff going on.
I would have tried to tell a bunch of jokes. Because I'm just like, oh, this first thing in the morning, these people need jokes. They don't need jokes.
No.
They just need to move forward with their work. The activity that they do and the things they create is where the real learning happens. And the quickest we can get there, the better.
I love that, especially because being a former
there we go.
Talking about not being able to pronounce words. A former U.S. and world history teacher, you talked about there's things that, if you look at our at state standards, they usually talk about the rise and fall of Rome, and which part do you want me to spend the entire year on?
Right.
And you have to figure out how to shorten that. Which part of it is making you more efficient, and you show many different ways of doing that, but the boards allow that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to do is, as we move through here is I've got to make sure that I say this because it was cool. You started today by saying, let's define differentiation by using the word engagement. I've just used my own words to say what you said. But can you talk about that a little bit, about getting the idea of getting kids engaged in the classroom, what we're talking about?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I really do think... I'm going to expand my definition just a little bit. I know in that video I said engagement, but reflecting on that video as in this room, as I watched it back for the third time, I guess, I was thinking, maybe we could expand it just a little bit because it's not only about engagement, but it's about also challenge. So it's an intersection of challenge and engagement.
Okay.
Because when I think of engagement, I think of figuring out ways, and again, we have very large and diverse classrooms. So you think about ways, how do I engage that student who is, doesn't like school, doesn't like being there, who doesn't do well, has been always taught that they fail at school and they've sort of learned helplessness. Okay, right. I've got that student, and then all the way up to a student who's, again, very, very intelligent, high functioning, can fly through material. So I've got that's my range, and that's a very difficult range. So differentiated instruction is simply, how do I design my classroom so I do my best to engage both of those students and everyone in between? I think that something like Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences gets us along the way to figuring that kind of thing out. Because if we realize that students have different learning styles, that the student who has been disengaged for their entire school experience, maybe they love drawing. They see the world, they're an amazing artist, but right. Just the lecture-based classroom doesn't work for them. Figuring that out and realizing that some students are very strong in spatial intelligence. If we can design lessons that are built for that student to be able to express themselves and learn the content through their medium, that will highly engage and turn that student around and bring them back into the learning experience. Whereas you have a student who may be extremely bright, who loves listening to lectures, who does very, very well at that and excels, and who's going to be a PhD student someday, the 1%.
Right.
Because that's really what it is. That's 1% who are really great at listening to lectures and will eventually get a PhD. Figuring out a way to also meet their needs and push them beyond. And that's really what it's about. It's about figuring out what learning styles students have and trying to meet those needs, but then also figuring out what level of challenge we can offer our students, because there may be students, for instance, ESL learners, who need to move very slowly. So the lower levels of rigor are probably more appropriate for them at the beginning. Of course, we want to push everybody to higher levels. There we go. Higher levels of rigor. That's hard to say. Try to say that.
Higher levels. Higher levels of rigor. Higher levels of rigor.
There you go. Higher levels. .com. Just took it. I don't know why. I just pointed at the microphone when I said
That's
that.
Nice. I'm waiting for it to point back at you.
It's just. Hey,
well, maybe it is. I don't
know. It sort of is. But also figuring out what the appropriate level of challenge is for students. Maybe not everybody in the classroom is ready to create a video lecture of them teaching and then reflect on that,
Right.
But I do think everybody in the class certainly would be able to do some assignment that, we could meet their level of rigor that they need and understand that some students aren't ready for the higher levels of rigor, but that we want everybody to get there. And if we can have some students doing the creating and publishing aspect, it will inspire others to want to work harder. Like I want to be up on the screen. I want to be on YouTube, and having those, the creating and publishing levels,
right,
allow that sort of peer pressure to happen as well for students maybe who are less motivated. I've seen a number of instances, and I hate to make it about behavior, but a lot of times that's the case, that students aren't
mature.
Yeah, they're not mature enough to be given sort of a freedom assignment like that. So they stay at the lower levels, understanding, remembering, and applying their learning, where I can go over and spend time with those students and help them. But they also see other students in the classroom doing the higher levels and who are mature enough to take on the responsibility of their own learning, and that can be a very powerful force. Did I answer your question? I feel like I got way. What was the original question?
It was, why is the sky blue?
Oh, I answered it then. Because I said so.
Because you said so. I like that, yes. Yeah. No, you did. We were talking about differentiation and engagement.
Sure.
And that was good. So, sorry, you're going to get me. This is why I have to keep myself focused.
Fair enough.
Get me way off track.
Glad one of us is.
I got to tell you, you're extremely talented, and
I'll go on.
Seriously, man. And what was cool was today it was even more so to understand how talented you are, because if you visit your websites and look at the presentations and the lectures and just look at the base stuff that you've come up with, that's one thing. But like if you visit the what do you call the one sheets or the paper presentations or whatever the kids do with music?
Sure. A paper slide music
videos. Yeah. And you've written songs for all different content levels, and now you're working on these 50 states, and you got the flipping the classroom stuff, and which, by the way, I think is funny because I keep wanting to say the flipping classroom. So anyway, anyway, my point is that the 50 states. What was amazing was you showed the process, and doing with the metronome, doing part of the banjo, then the part with the drums, then combining it all and the different parts and all that stuff, and it's just amazing. One of the things I've heard lots of these different songs, like I said. Tell me a little bit about why you focus on the music. What is it about music? I know you got a background in music, which obviously makes that nice. It would be bad if you didn't.
Right.
Playing. But tell me about the idea with music. What is it that you see its role in the classroom?
Well, I truly believe, just if we take today's conversation about education, most people are saying, we have to have STEM career. Everything's about science and math. We need engineers. Right. We need scientists in order to drive us into the 21st century and I truly believe we need artists. That art is sort of we talk about reaching your potential as a human being. I think a lot of that goes back to reaching our potential as artists in terms of creators and expressing ourselves and expressing what it means to be a human and the human condition. I think that's the fundamental human experience, being an artist. We're all born to be artists, and school talks us out of it. So my real passion in bringing music into content areas that are way above. Well, the feedback I used to get, I don't get this much anymore. I don't know why. Maybe because I've done enough. But the feedback I used to get is like, well, that's baby stuff. Music and that's getting students to move around or even read lyrics. That is really elementary kind of stuff. Because I created music when I was teaching. I used to create music for my AP Economics class. Those are 18-year-olds.
Right.
Those are kids. And they're also human beings. And music is a common language that we all share, and that most 99.9% of the people on this planet dearly love. So we can't ignore the power of something like that in getting, packaging information, jingles and popular songs. It packages information and just directs it or directly injects it into your brain. And some things, you hear a song twice, and then 20 years later you hear it again, and it brings you back to that 20 year ago kind of. It has this amazing power, and my passion is to bring that power right into the classroom and hand that power to teachers to really engage students, and then have them hand that power to students to get engaged in learning in really deep ways that promote and allow them to be artists again. Allow them to do what they did for the first 3-4 years of their life, which is sing about everything, dance everything, draw everything, and absolutely love being alive and love learning.
I love it. That's awesome, because it's it's so easily driven out of them to say that, I'm not going to do that anymore. But they'll, in a heartbeat, you'll get the kids to respond, and then they in turn will, just through others doing it, others will want to participate. And I love that. That's incredible, because we are in this bad direction right now where you see the elimination of a lot of fine arts programs where people are blaming, well, just because I can't keep this going. Well, it's like, I think you need to figure out how to make that go, because not everybody's going to be an engineer, and not everybody wants to be one, and there are these.
Not everybody should.
Not everybody should, exactly.
This country is about diversity. It's always been about diversity, and making statements that we need every student to be ready to be an engineer or a scientist is a dangerous concept.
Oh, I think so.
My favorite people are artists.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It's almost like we're going in that direction of, for some reason, just the thought of everybody wants to be a lawyer comes to mind here.
Yeah, right.
So.
Same kind of thing. Yeah, not everybody needs to be a lawyer.
No.
We have plenty of lawyers.
Thank you very much, yes.
Nothing against lawyers.
Yeah, nothing against lawyers, yes.
Yeah.
With that being said, I got to say something. This is really cool. When I watch your videos, you have a couple of them where your parents are highlighted. And that's got to be neat. Hopefully that they didn't force you. All right, we got to be involved in this. We raised you.
Yeah, we're in your next videos. Yeah.
That's got to be pretty cool to be able to have them have a role in these music videos that you're making about the 50 states. What do they think about it? And what's the type of feedback you get from people when they see those?
Man, I get really positive feedback, of course, because it's an exceptional. I realize how exceptional that piece actually is, and the funny thing about it is I started thinking about the 50 States project back at the end, toward the end of summer. I couldn't get motivated to do it. It was sort of overwhelming, starting something like that. You're just like, oh, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start, because my first song was Pennsylvania. Like, I have to create, because all the songs followed the same template, and I wanted it that way because it would be completely overwhelming without a template. If every song was just like, I don't know, we'll see if the first verse will be about this guy, and then so it's all the same template. Although all the songs are hopefully quite different, but they all follow the same pattern. I couldn't get past. Okay, I've got to do this. I've got to start this. As soon as I start, it'll be much easier. So I talked to my parents. I actually reached out to them and said, will you come into town and help me get this started? It'll be awesome to get you in the first couple songs, and it'll be a lot of fun. So they drove they live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. So they drove, and they were going to spend 10 days.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they were there, and that motivated me to be like, they're there to do this. So I got to go up. I got to get this work done. I can't, they're waiting for me to do this work, so I have to get this done. So I went up, created the template, created the first song, we recorded it, and had so much fun, and we were just laughing, absolutely laughing like crazy, because my dad plays a bunch of different instruments, and my mom plays a bunch of different stringed instruments, so we're collaborating, putting these things together, and it was a great time. They stayed for 5 weeks.
Wow.
And we recorded 4 songs.
Excellent.
We recorded Pennsylvania, Texas, Florida, and North Carolina. And we had so much fun. They went home for 3 weeks. And then, because I was traveling for a couple weeks in there, actually about 4 weeks. And then they came back and spent another 5 weeks. And we recorded 6 more songs in 5 weeks.
Wow.
So basically all the rest of Alta California in the American Southwest. It's just so great. And it's one of those things academically I understand. Think about this, that 20 years from now, watching those videos back will be so incredibly magical, and showing it to future generations of my family.
Most definitely.
Just an incredible experience. And I'm so fortunate that they're not only willing to do that, because both of them are very much, my dad is very much a Luddite. I think that's where I get some of my, not that I'm a Luddite, but some of my, keep it simple type of mentality. But he is as much off the grid as he can possibly be. But now he's on YouTube, doing all this crazy stuff. It's a funny dichotomy. But they're just amazing people, and I get a lot of really positive feedback. People saying things like, I hope you understand how incredible it is that you have parents that would do that and that can do that, and how incredible it is. And I do realize that, and I value it so much. After leaving the university to do this work, it was sort of a risk, right? I'm leaving this thing to do this much more speculative work that I'm very passionate about, so it's all good. I wouldn't trade anything for those first 10 songs that we recorded. Anything in the world. It was an incredible experience. they don't know this, but I'm going to bring 2 or 3 songs with me home for Christmas. So I'm going back to Tennessee, back to Knoxville for Christmas and spending probably a couple weeks. I'm going to bring a couple songs with me, and I'm going to get my sister and my niece and my mom and my dad to contribute on those. So we'll have
that is awesome.
Multiple things. And then they're going to come back in February for another 5 weeks, and we're going to hopefully I'll be in the 25 to 30 song range by February.
Right.
Probably not, but that's coming up pretty soon. I'll do the best I can, though. But yeah, absolutely incredible. Major positive feedback, and I'm incredibly fortunate, and I realize that.
That's awesome. Because I look at that, and it's really neat, and the words you used before to explain what people say to you, that's amazing, and to be able to have that opportunity and for them to be able to do it, just like you said. So I enjoy watching those specifically.
Thank you. And you have to get to a point. I think that me as a kid, a kid of my parents, you have to get to a maturity point where you can cross the barrier of, it's my parents and I'm doing my own thing.
Right.
I just recently got past that. It's a hard thing to get past because you feel like you're roped in by your past, and I want to do my own thing and I want to be my own person. But then when you let that go and you let your parents back in and realize that they are human beings, and they're talented and they bring a lot to the table, that's where the real amazing magic can happen.
That's awesome. Keep doing it. That's cool. We're kind of getting to the close now, and what I want to do.
But I have so much more to say.
Awesome. All right. So what's funny is I'm getting ready to ask you. So what is it you'd like to talk about that we haven't talked about?
No. Are we at that point?
We're at that point, yes.
Well, I think there's just so much. I mean, musically, allow students to be artists, allow students to create, of course. And I feel very passionate, of course, that I want teachers to start digging back into their artistic selves. One of the things that I'm very skeptical of, I'm going to end on a positive note, but I'm going to go skeptical and then I'm going to try to turn it out.
That'll work.
So one of the things that I'm very skeptical of is our obsession with technology. I think one of the things that we're going to realize not too many years from now is that technology, having students, little kids, I see little kids sitting with an iPad playing some sort of app video game, of having this character on the screen jump over things, and they're just sitting there just fixated on this screen and jumping. When I'm all in my head, I'm thinking, go outside and jump over something. But we're glued to these things. Kids are glued to television. We're glued to their iPads or whatever their devices. They're glued to their screens in the back seats of the cars. They're in the back.
Oh yeah.
It's just I think it's an addiction that we're going to find out that we've created something pretty dangerous here pretty soon. One of the things that I'm interested in is trying to, but also realizing that there can be incredibly motivating factors with the use of technology. So trying to walk the line, also bringing in that kind of human spirit and artistic nature. And that's why I am not a visual artist, but I absolutely love, and I think it's very powerful and important for me to take these whiteboards, a stack of whiteboards, and draw this information on it. It forces me to create unique art. It might not be the most beautiful handwriting. I might be using rectangles to express things, but that is true art. I took a canvas, I made completely unique brushstrokes to that canvas. And I think a lot of times with templates and technology, we get away from that human artistic spirit of sitting down with a whiteboard and drawing something and making a mistake. And wiping through it and getting the ink on your hand and rubbing your neck and getting it on your neck. This artistic, what it means to be human, chiseling on walls. Now we're handing students these screens and saying, here, create something, but just drop some pictures in this template. It won't take but a couple minutes, and then we'll project that. It's getting away from the process of creation and promoting sort of assembly instead of creation, because those are two very different things. Assembling a product is not the same thing as making those mistakes and looking at it from a different perspective and then taking a picture or filming it and then watching it back and be like, how can I change that? That's the process of an artist. Dropping something into a template is sending the wrong message. And I think that handing a teacher a set of whiteboards, having them draw out their art on those whiteboards and explain what they drew, and then handing those same whiteboards to students and saying, I want to see your art. I think that's where we need to go.
Hello listeners, we want to remind everyone to check out all of our digital content at teachinglearningleadingk12.com. That's teachinglearningleadingk12.com. You can also find our podcast on iTunes. Just search Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 in the iTunes Store. Check back often for updates and new material.
You have been listening to Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12, recorded in Eastman, Georgia at the Heart of Georgia RESA.